Okay, everyone. Welcome again. Welcome back, everyone, joining us again. Um, Welcome to those who are joining us for the first time for an evening larger event. It's so good to see many of you here. So nice to see everyone joining the room here. So many. Thank you for introducing yourselves. Thank you for offering your location, particularly like the tribal, indigenous names of the land that you're on. That's really wonderful. Um, this hoodie is sacred as fuck. Um, this is the first lesson of Tantra. What is Tantra? Tantra is realizing that you are sacred as fuck. Um, Scared as fuck. Um, there is a running joke with these hoodies and shirts that I wear where people confuse the message and then it turns into internet memes, which are really funny actually. This hoodie is from my homegirl Jelani. Her website is Black Lotus Rising. You can just kind of do an internet search. If anyone wants to do that search for Black Lotus Rising, um, pop that link right into the chat box there. That would be really wonderful. Um, and she makes all kinds of shirts like that. There you go. Thank you, Adam. So blacklotusrising.org shop. So all kinds of shirts like this is really wonderful. We're going to get started. So Lama Justin will not be able to be with us tonight. He is really struggling with the virus, with COVID-19, and so he's having to rest tonight. So we will be continuing on, and I thought that we could actually open up our talk together, our time together tonight with Medicine Buddha practice. And that way we can all participate in kind of generating something positive and transformative for all beings who are struggling to be well, not just those of us who are struggling with the virus, with the pandemic, but just any imbalanced illness, sickness, and so forth. In the chat box, I will place the link for the Medicine Buddha text, and that takes you to the text that I will be guiding you through tonight. Now, you don't absolutely need it to do the practice, but I think it's good if possible to have it up, because there is a prayer, a Shantideva prayer, that we recite a couple of times in the text, as well as the mantra. Teatam Began say Ma Began say Rasa Sumangate Soha, which is the Tantra, which is the mantra for Medicine Buddha. So that's in the text. So that's good to have up if possible. So as you see right beside me, I do have a Medicine Buddha Tanka here. And this is in all the videos that I've been doing the past several months. Medicine Buddha has been the main energy that I've been working with during the pandemic, but Medicine Buddha is the deity that I've been working with for a while now. The practice of Medicine Buddha has been really important for me as an activist, because my activism is so grounded in health and balance and wellness, and I'm interested in the causes and conditions that perpetuate imbalance, and that, for me, that is a part of activism. We're going beneath the symptoms to ask ourselves what are actually the roots of the issues that we're we're organizing around and against and so forth. And so Medicine Buddha has helped me to really like dig into this expression of activism that helps me to understand causes and conditions of systematic injustice, but as well as imbalance, illness, sickness, disease, and so forth. And this is, going to be part of our kind of exploration tonight. What is Tantra? How does it work? And so we're going to start with our practice. We'll be offering commentary here and there. And then we'll have space for questions. You can ask questions in the question box. You can also come online to ask the question personally, so we can share the screen with you if you feel so inclined to do that. And so, with me, when I think of, Tantra is, for me, something that's a little slightly different than Vajrayana Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism. For me, Tantra is a broader umbrella that encompasses both kind of like Hindu or Indus Valley Vedic practice in Southeast Asia, as well as what we would call Vajrayana practice, which is in Ladakh and Nepal, and of course, Tibet, Sikkim, places like that. So the tantric umbrella really actually refers to a system of practice, actually. And Tantra means web or weaving, so the ways in which we weave together different strands of transformative, I would say, practice, activity, in order to touch into the nature of how things really are. And Tantra takes on these various rituals, and Tantra is so concerned with the ritual of the body. And that's something that is we don't, like, I don't know if, when we study Tantra, we talk about the body in a way that's more restorative and liberatory. But when I think about Tantra, I think about the ritual of bodies. I think about the ritual of the different ways in which we experience embodiments. So not just the physical body, but the energetic body, the mental body, the erotic body, the sexual body, the emotional body, the ego body, and not just these individual expressions of bodies, but also collective bodies, So Tantra is about developing a relationship to these various expressions of bodies, the ways in which we can experience embodiment, and taking a step further, the ways in which we can transform these ways of being embodied into these experiences of complete liberation and enlightenment. And that's exciting as well. Everything is taken onto the path of Tantra. Everything is worked with. One of the teachings of Tantra is that we're taking poison and turning poison into medicine, so which is another way of saying that nothing is avoided, right? There's nothing that's off the table, we could say, right? Everything's on the table for discussion. And, I came into, of course, Tibetan Buddhism, Vajrayana, and I was really very much in that tradition. And as many of you know, like over the past several years, I've been actually expanding more out of the Tibetan Vajrayana expression of Tantra and incorporating more of the Vedic, like Indus Valley, indigenous, or what we would, label Hinduism. But Hinduism is such a a vague, ambiguous term, but these practices that are connected to, and how people essentially related to the energy around them and made the energies around them accessible, and how that accessibility, or the ways in which we made these energies accessible, also lent themselves to establishing a kind of freedom. So in the Vedic side of this, it's about returning back to unity, to Brahma, right? To the Godhead, to this ultimate cosmic consciousness, to this essential expression of reality. On the Tibetan Buddhist or Vajrayana side of Tantra, we're talking about achieving this kind of enlightenment, which is the recognition of the essence of mind, which we would say is the recognition and the experience of Buddhahood, right? So in my practice, those two paths lead to the same place. But what Tantra also is encouraging us to do is to figure out what works for us to get to the end. So it's not necessarily saying here are the only things that you can do to get there. If you do something different, then you're not going to get to the end. It's saying that, no, actually, you can get really creative. Here are some basic guidelines, right? But you can put together something that looks really unique to meet your goal, your end goal. And I think for us in Bhumisparsha, that is an ethic that's really powerful for us. It's like, how do we practice and embody a kind of agency where we feel empowered to create a path that meets our needs, right? And where we're not necessarily saying, okay, my path has to look exactly like everyone else's path, right? In my training in Vajrayana, we got this sadhana, and we were told, okay, everyone has to chant this, everyone has to do the sadhana exactly the same, and for me, that became really rigorous and rigid, and uncreative and boring, because the sadhana no longer met my needs as a practitioner, right? And so I expanded my understanding of Vajrayana, turning my attention back into Tantra, and asked myself, okay, what do I need to do in order to create practices, to create rituals that speak more to my needs in getting enlightened? And also, how do I create a path that embraces my identity within the relative? And that's when shit starts falling apart in Vajrayana traditions for those of us who are coming out of Tibetan Buddhism Vajrayana, right? It's like, identity, right? We're not going to talk about identity, but in the Tantra that Bhumisparsha is practicing, we're actually talking about identity. I'm talking about like literally being among many identities that I occupy, being, this Black, cisgendered, queer, slave descendant, like poor, mixed class, sassy, messy, kind of late to everything, kind of petty, depending on what's going on. But like all of those identities, how do I create a path towards enlightenment that embraces all of that and doesn't leave anything to the side, right? How can I enter into the path of tantric practice, bringing everything along, which is the complete opposite kind of like experience that many of us have had, where we've been told to actually leave a part of ourselves at the door. Leave. You can't be like Black, and do this, right? Or you can't be, of a different ability and do this, or you can't be, whatever, whatever it is, right? Traditionally we know from Vajrayana in particular that there's of course, a privilege for, cisgender men, right? Um, and we're trying to break that by saying that, like, anyone can get enlightened. And this is also, some of you have heard me give teachings on Tara. You'll hear me talk more about Tara on Sunday. But this is why I love the tradition of Tara practice, Matara, because it's actually about disrupting our fixation on this idea that only certain bodies can achieve enlightenment and freedom. Only certain genders can achieve enlightenment and freedom. Right now, it's like, enlightenment is open to everyone, open to everyone, every being, and we have to believe that. So Tantra is also about believing that I have everything that I need, because you do. You have absolutely everything you need in this moment to experience enlightenment, right? And what we need to do is start coming back to this basic teaching, is that first and foremost, I am sacred as fuck. I am sacred as fuck, right? And for those of us who grew up, I grew up, in the Christian church. I grew up in the Black church, where I was raised to believe that I was actually, quite, sinful. I was like wrong. I was born, as a, blemished or whatever, original sin, right? Like I am born trying to earn my divinity, my sacredness. But when we start getting into Tantra, in Buddhism in general, we're saying that, oh, I am actually born divine, but I keep forgetting that, or I've lost connection to that. And these practices are trying to get me back to understanding that I am a deity, that I am sacred, and maybe I have to fake it till I make it, which is one of the skillful means of Vajrayana. You have to be your whole self, even if you are a pain in the ass, and I know some of you in this room, and you are a pain in the ass, and I love you anyway, because I'm a pain in the ass sometimes, right? But you bring even your most difficult aspects into the path, right? Everything has to be worked with. Everything has to be brought into the path as material to gain this deeper wisdom of who and what we are. Okay, so I'm tired of talking already. So if you're just coming into the room, I'm gonna just pop the Medicine Buddha text in again. Oops. It's not letting me do it. But if you scroll up, you'll find the text again. Right. And so we're going to start our Medicine Buddha text practice. And yeah, thank you, Eric. It won't let me do this again. And we're going to get a taste. I know many of you have been doing this with me already, but we're going to get a taste of what we mean by touching our divinity, and we're going to get a taste of how reluctant many of us are to touch that divinity. Because when we realize that we're more than the bullshit that we put out in the world, then we actually have to start taking responsibility for that bullshit. And then you have to let go of all the ways it feels really good just to be bullshit, and what Tantra is calling us to do is to say, what, actually, you need to do the work of moving beyond the harm, taking responsibility for the harm, reducing that harm, and coming into a place of deep love for self and deep love for community, and it's work, and it's hard, and it's grueling, it's brutal, And this is why most people in the world choose not to do this hard work of trying to get free. We just do this really easy work of maintaining, or this really easy work of just kind of showing up to these really basic material worldly comforts, which are wonderful, which I love, you know, but like my like really like my nice hoodie or whatever, all the good things that I have in the world, these aren't the things that are going to get me free. They can be really helpful things that get me free. They can be really fun things that support the practice, but they're not the practice themselves. And so I have to go further, into the pain, into the fear, essentially into the poison. And that's what Tantra ultimately is. Let's go into the poison, and you're going to turn this poison into medicine. And one of the ways we turn poison into medicine is by seeing the things that we're always habitually running away from as the expression of the deity, as the expression of the mother, as the expression of our innermost sacred wisdom mind, as an expression of God, however we want to label that. But we begin to see the things that we habitually avoid as a teacher trying to get us free from suffering. Yeah, and that's it. So as we begin Medicine Buddha, it's important for me to point out that you are already Medicine Buddha. You are empowered to practice Medicine Buddha. You don't need me to wave a wand around, or give you a ritual permission. I give you permission as one who is born into a divine human life, that you are endowed with all the privileges and the right to assume the seat of Medicine Buddha. So there you go. That was the empowerment. Yay. It was your first empowerment for most of you. If we were in person, you would be giving me money now, because it's such a blessing to get an empowerment from such a realized Lama as me. So you have to start believing that you're better than what you are, essentially. This is essentially how we're going to start the practice. You have to start taking the risk to believe, to have faith that you're much more than the suffering and the struggle. That you are indeed a deity, that you are indeed enlightened, that you are indeed divine and sacred. And this is how we're starting the practice. With this contemplation, you are, or rather, you're saying this to yourself: I am sacred. I am divine. I am more and better than the harm I create for myself and others. I am more than the ignorance. I'm more than the pettiness. I am more than this epidemic. I am more than my body. I am more than my ego. I am more than all the silly, stupid, hurtful things that people tell me I am. And I lay my disbelief, my suffering, my unwillingness to believe any of this, I lay all of this at the feet of the deity, of the guru. I lay it at the feet of the mother. I lay it at the feet of God. I lay it at the feet of this cosmic consciousness, this divine cosmic consciousness that is everything. And this is how we begin to approach deity practice, which is a really beautiful expression of tantric practice, which is developed very differently in the Vajrayana Buddhist side of tantric practice. And the big difference is that in the Vajrayana Buddhist side of tantric practice with deities, we are the deity, we become the deity. We just don't worship the deity, we become the deity. And in becoming the deity, which is just a play, which is a play, it's a dance, right? It's dress up, it's make-believe, but that make-believe is serious play that begins to unlock these experiences of who and what we are that we don't see in our normal lives. When I say I am Medicine Buddha, I am doing something so unbelievably radical and transformative that I can't even sense it consciously because it's happening so deeply, in my experience. There's a shift, disruption, transformation happening so deeply in my experience that it will impact the rest of my lives in cyclic rebirth and samsara. So we'll be using visualization and pranayama and chanting and developing these attitudes, this bodhicitta, compassion and love for ourselves and for other beings. In order to become, to sink deeper into this reality that I am Medicine Buddha. So now we're going to turn right into the text. And again, you don't have to follow completely. But there is a picture of Medicine Buddha that could be helpful for you in the visualizations. And there's also the prayer as well as the mantra that could be really helpful as well. Okay. So this is a sadhana. So sadhana is a practice, a practice that we use to experience a different expression of who we are, particularly in deity practice. A deity sadhana connects us to our innermost deity, our most awakened, enlightened nature. Okay, so we are formally beginning. So I invite you to begin to shift your attention to your breath and breathe in and out of the nose. And stay with the breath for a few moments. Of course, breathing in and out of the nose helps to calm our nervous system. I just like to slow my breath down, elongating the inhale as well as the exhale. And now I invite you to bring your attention to something that you're grateful for, and to feel the energy of gratitude growing as warmth or light within the heart center. In my practice, I experience heat as the energy of gratitude, but just reflecting on something that you're grateful for. And feeling that energy of gratitude as heat in the heart center or as light. Or you can just say, I am experiencing this energy, and that's enough as well. And just begin to imagine that you're breathing in and out of the heart center. And as you inhale, imagine that the breath feeds the energy of gratitude in the heart center, like oxygen feeding a fire. Imagine that the inhale begins to circulate the energy of gratitude throughout the body. So maybe you begin to feel warmth circulating the body, or you imagine your body beginning to fill with light. Or you can just tell yourself that this is happening, that I am being filled with the energy of gratitude. And to sit in this energy of gratitude and to be held by this energy of gratitude is what I would call taking refuge in gratitude. This energy that holds me, that opens up my heart center, it helps me to hold space. And now I invite you to turn your attention to the earth under you. Notice it. Allow your attention to touch the earth. And if you know the native indigenous name of your land you're practicing on, call the earth this name and ask it to hold you during this practice. Share this energy of gratitude down through the body into the earth. And in doing so, we bless the land under us, and it becomes sacred. And now I invite you to turn your attention back to the breath. And I want you to ask your breath to continue to support you during this practice. And many of us have so many different varied relationships to our breath. But share the energy of gratitude with your breath. And we can make a special aspiration that as we continue to breathe during the practice, we are aspiring to breathe on behalf of so many people who cannot breathe because of the virus or because of any other thing in their practice or in their lives, that both symbolically not being able to breathe and also physically not being able to breathe in whatever condition they're in, but you are breathing on behalf of those beings who can't breathe. And you're sharing your breath with them. And now I invite you to turn your attention to any deities, spirits, ancestors, lineage, or teachers that are important for you, and ask them to support you during the practice. And in my practice, I just imagine that I'm just inviting these beings to come sit with me, all of the deities, all the spirits, ancestors, my teachers and guides, and all kinds of various energies that are always supporting me and guiding me. I just invite them to come into the space And I thank them for their support. And I offer this energy of gratitude back to them. And I ask them to continue to support me. And now imagine that this energy of gratitude begins to collect down at the base of your spine. And it collects into a small ball of white light the size of a pearl. Now slowly imagine, when you're ready, that this ball of light slowly moves upward, ascends upward to just below the top of the head at the crown chakra. And we can imagine that this pearl of light is slowly moving up what we call the central channel, the Uma or the Sushumna, depending on our traditions. The central channel that runs parallel to the spine. From our root chakra at the base of the spine to the very top of our head. This ball of light slowly moving up till it reaches the top of our head. Now imagine that this ball of light now imagine that this ball of light floats out the top of the head, and it floats to about 6 inches above your head. And imagine that the ball of light begins to glow intensely. Soon a wave of white light pulses from the ball, washing over the whole world. And all the beings in the world, instantly cleansing the world and everyone, all beings of all disease, all ailments, all imbalances. And the world becomes pure. We would say that the world becomes the realm of Medicine Buddha. Now imagine that instantly the ball of light transforms into Medicine Buddha above our head, sitting on a lotus seat. In the same way you see beside me, the same way you see in the picture in the texts. This deity, blue in color, adorned with monk's robes, holding a bowl and a plant, both of which associated with complete healing of all illness and disease. And with any visualization that we engage in, you don't have to see anything perfectly or clearly, but just having a sense that it is there, that Medicine Buddha is above your head. It's enough. It's enough simply to say Medicine Buddha is above my head. And trusting that Medicine Buddha is actually there. And now we move to reciting Shantideva's prayer. And if you have your text in front of you, it's at the bottom of page 3. And we'll just recite it once. And we're imagining that we're reciting this prayer to Medicine Buddha above our heads. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring a further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine. And may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. And now imagine that Medicine Buddha is moved by your prayer, and as a result, he begins to radiate with this intense white light. Imagine that a stream of light begins to fall from under his lotus seat onto the top of your head. The light sinks into your seventh chakra, the crown chakra. And as it does, it cleanses that crown chakra. You begin to experience a stronger connection to Medicine Buddha, as well as a stronger connection to your guiding deities, your lineage, as well as your ancestors. Now the light sinks down into your sixth chakra, or your third eye. Imagine that the light cleanses the third eye, and your perception and intuition deepens. The light sinks down into the fifth chakra now, or the throat chakra. The light cleanses the chakra, and you experience the ability to speak with intense truth and clarity. The light sinks down into the fourth chakra, or the heart center. And it cleanses the heart center, and you experience a deeper capacity to have love and compassion for yourself. The light sinks down now into the third chakra, the solar plexus, which is around your navel, and it cleanses it as you experience more agency and choice in your practice. The light sinks down now into your second chakra, your sacral chakra, which is in your genitalia or pelvis area. And it cleanses that chakra as you experience more creativity, connection, and balancing of sexual energy. And now the light sinks down into your root chakra at the base of your spine, cleansing it. And you experience more groundedness and less fear. Imagine that the light now sinks down into the earth, blessing the earth again, and you begin to experience a deeper connection with the earth and the land under you. Imagine that Medicine Buddha now begins to glow with an even more intense light that radiates from his body and engulfs your body, and instantly you become Medicine Buddha. And we begin this transformation by first saying to ourselves, I am Medicine Buddha. I am the deity. And beyond that, we can imagine our physical bodies as expressions of Medicine Buddha. And we just sit within this practice for a moment. And so now we'll move into our mantra recitation. During the mantra recitation, I invite you to engage in a series of visualizations and practices, which are all here in the text if you're reading that. But I'll go through them, and you are encouraged to move through these visualizations at your own pace, or to do a part of the visualizations, or to make up your own visualization during the mantra. You can help recite them. You can recite the mantra and just sit within the form of Medicine Buddha, and that is blessing enough as well. But if you choose to do a little more, as we begin to recite the mantra, you can imagine that the people in your life that need healing and support begin to gather around you. And you begin to radiate the blessings of healing in the form of white light that engulfs those around you, cleansing them of their ailments. So that's one visualization. You can go a step further and to say that when you have gathered the folks around you and have extended your blessings, which are radiating from your body, imagine that they transform into images of Medicine Buddha as well. So they become Medicine Buddha too. And we continue chanting the mantra as long as you wish, seeing your invited folks as Medicine Buddha. To take it a step further, imagine that you, as Medicine Buddha, begin to send your light of healing into spaces that are hardest hit by the virus, like hospitals, nursing homes, etc. Imagine that your healing energy floods these spaces, healing all folks with the virus and restoring energy to many of the workers on the front lines of care and also the front lines of maintaining essential services right now for us. And then beyond that, you can offer any kind of visualization or practice which is appropriate for you, which is powerful for you as well. So we'll begin with the chanting. I'll chant for about 7 minutes. I'll be doing some drumming. And then just during the chanting, you can join me, or you can sit and just do visualizations. Again, whatever is appropriate for you. So I'll begin. O te ata begenze ma begenze rasa sumangate soha. 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 Te ata Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagate Soa, Te Ata Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagane Soa. Jaya Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagane Soa. Jaya Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagane Soa. Jaya Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagane Soa. Jaya Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagane Soa. Jaya Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagane Soa. Jaya Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagane Soa. Jaya Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagane Soa. Jaya Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Rasa Sumagane Soa. And in this space, we can offer any final prayers to Medicine Buddha. Any special prayers for those that we're practicing for, whom we're concerned for. And my final prayer to Medicine Buddha is for the eradication of all causes and conditions of disease, of imbalance, of injustice, of inequity. So, returning our attention back to the Medicine Buddha above our head, we imagine that he dissolves back into this ball of white light, and that ball of light floats down and dissolves into our heart center as Medicine Buddha. If you have summoned folks to sit with you in the practice, please allow them to return back to where they came from. And begin to dissolve your form as Medicine Buddha down into a ball of light. And imagine that the ball of light dissolves into, and slowly, just slowly dissolving into a ball of light. And that slowly this ball of light begins to dissolve into emptiness. Begin to rest your awareness within emptiness and spaciousness. So slowly beginning to come back into the space, coming back to the body, coming back into the moment. And we shift our attention back up to the Shantideva prayer, and we're going to recite the prayer 3 more times. And imagine that as you recite this prayer, that this recitation becomes a kind of oath that you're taking, this deep, deep cultivation of bodhicitta, which is this wish to practice and obtain enlightenment on behalf of all beings. But it's also this deep, deep grounding and compassion. So let's begin. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the nurse, and may I be, and for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. This is our last time. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach until the ends of space. So slowly we're coming out of the practice, and when we do really heavy energy work like this, we want to slowly just do some very slow guided movements. And this is up to you, but I love to begin by stretching my arms up to the ceiling and just feeling the stretch in my side bodies here. It's like a little crescent stretch. And then just bringing my attention back down to my shoulders and just kind of rotating my shoulders. And what we're doing is actually moving energy around, any stuck energy. Change the rotation of the shoulders, bringing the shoulders up to the ears, back down. If you want, rotating the head. Changing directions. Okay. Letting your head come back, letting it come forward to the sides. Do a little side twist here. Changing directions. We're going to do a huge cleansing breath. We're going to do that breath by breathing through our nose, taking a big deep breath in, and we're going to exhale. And we're going to imagine exhaling out every hole, every pore of our bodies as if the air is just leaving the whole surface of our bodies at once. So we're going to do this 3 times. The first breath, breathing deeply in, exhaling. Okay, then spreading your fingers as well, because you're breathing out through your fingers as well. Our second breath, breathing deeply in, exhaling. Okay, taking a normal breath. Now last cleansing breath, breathing deeply in, exhaling. Okay. Coming back to a normal breath. Okay. If you have some water, please grab some water as well. Okay. All right. So let's I'll take some questions. Now, if anyone has any questions, you can ask those questions in the question box, or you can request to come onto the screen to ask it in person as well, and Alex can help you with all of that. There is one question here already. Can I speak about Zen and Tantra? Well, Tantra, there are tantric strains, lineages in all lineages of Buddhism, including Theravada traditions, including Mahayana traditions like Zen as well. There are tantric Zen lineages. There's Japanese tantric lineages. There's one here. Well, there's a lineage here in the States as well, tantric Zen lineage as well, whose name I can't necessarily call from the top of my head, but there are lineages of Tantra, in all lineages. And so, but when we get into Tantra, we get into you get into like really heavy deity practice as well, and so you are becoming the deity. I'm not just a practitioner; I'm an expression of the deity, and that's a really important aspect of the practice. The focus on the mind is really important, but there are, we're also thinking about working with energies of prana and shakti. Prana being life force energy. Prana being life force energy, and which is often considered very neutral, and and Shakti, which is this kind of feminine divine energy, which in the body is located at the root, at the base of the spine, where we also would call it Kundalini. And that Kundalini Shakti can be activated through the breath in the body. Another aspect of Tantra is the way in which we relate to form. Form becomes something. So in my mind, the form is like let's think about a bottle. So here's my water bottle right here. And so this is hard plastic, so I can't really stretch this, I can't really bend it. Like this isn't like a milk jug, for instance, right? This isn't, like a Coke bottle, right? This is just like really hard. So this is one kind of form, But the form that Tantra is working with is kind of like a balloon, right? So a balloon is a form that takes on the size, that takes on the shape, that takes on the volume of whatever you fill it with, right? And so in this case, Tantra, with Tantra takes on the form and shape of the effort that you put into it and the creativity that you apply. And so that begins to change the shape of the container, but the container doesn't necessarily break, but it shifts, it stretches, but the container can break. It can actually shatter, and that is the risk that we're working with around Tantra, is that we're taking a risk. We're doing something, kind of out of the ordinary in order to reach these extraordinary results, and so that's why we need the guidance, particularly when we get into the Vajrayana Tibetan Buddhist expression of Tantra. That's why we need a teacher and a guide, for us to work with as well. Is it okay to practice without oral transmission and empowerment? Yes, it is. So like you don't need anyone's permission to touch the deity. You are inherently the deity to begin with. And I think sometimes we come into Vajrayana Buddhism with all of these superficial kinds of hierarchies and procedures that were often put into place to keep privileges concentrated within the clergy class, and so these things like empowerments and transmissions and so forth were there in order to restrict others and to provide resources and privileges for another group of folks. When I back into tantric practice in general, what I began to see for me, I began to relate to the mother. The mother is always present. I don't really need anyone's permission to practice the mother. Like I'm inherently there. Sure, I can use support here and there. I can use the guidance of a teacher or a spiritual friend, but like I don't need anyone's permission to be the deity. I have an inherent right to be the deity. You talk about the tantric streams and Theravada tradition. Yeah, that's not particularly my area of the tantric streams in Theravada Buddhism. I know like anecdotally of the strands of like magic tantra within within like Thai and Burmese Buddhism, which is Theravada Buddhism. But there are a couple of resources out there that we can look at as well. So what we, I've said this before in other venues, but the Theravada that we've gotten here in the West, particularly in the United States, in the form of insight, is a censored kind of sterilized expression of Theravada, right? And so there are a great many people who are going back to the root source of these traditions, by going back to these countries, by studying with teachers from these cultures to get a deeper sense of what that tradition is for them. So it's the breathing at the beginning of the practice, part of the practice or preparation for the practice. Everything is the practice. So anything that we do in preparation for the practice is essentially a part of the practice. Yeah. So that is part of the practice. To answer your question, yes, it is part of the practice. So how does being more than our bodies and identities and such tie into emptiness or not self Um, well, it is the recognition that we are both ourselves and not ourselves, and which is the expression of the Heart Sutra, which is form is emptiness, emptiness is form is no other than emptiness, emptiness is no other than form. So both are true, and it's easy that it is not correct to go into non-self or emptiness, because the Heart Sutra says that form is emptiness and emptiness is form, and so the the correct view is that both are true, that both there is emptiness and there is form at the same time, and it is a contradiction. And so Dharma is full of contradiction. And so I think one of the ways that we run around in circles is that we're trying to make these teachings make sense. When we get into Tantra, it doesn't actually make sense. That's the point, because we're trying to disrupt this kind of analytical mind, ego-centered mind, and that disruption actually opens us up into the truth of things. And that is an experience. That's not something we can articulate or write about or study. It's something that we have to sit in and experience, and that experience is going to completely disrupt how we participate within the relative, because you're going to be living the ultimate expression of the convergence of the relative and the ultimates. You're not choosing a side. You're not being more ultimate, you're not being more relative, you're being both. So I can be this Black man practicing Tantra, but I can also have an experience of being completely free and open at the same time. And that's not something that I thought about or analyzed. It's something that I have practiced and lived into through my experience of meditation. Nor can I explain it even more than that. That I am both Black and I'm not. Like, I both have this body and I don't have the body, and to live within that intersection is quite uncomfortable, but we're not trying to be comfortable in our practice. And so if you don't like being uncomfortable, then Tantra really isn't the tradition for you, Could you briefly explain the chakras? The chakras, there are thousands and thousands of chakras, and I think that one of the, and then in higher levels of Vajrayana practice, you focus on 4 chakras. In yoga systems, we're focusing on 7. So I usually actually prefer working with the 7 main chakras along the central channel here, right? And chakras are energy centers, right? So depending on the system of energy dynamics that you may study, one theory is that there are channels of energy moving up and down, right? The core of our bodies, and as these streams of energy intersect, they create these kind of whirlwinds, and that's a chakra. So these chakras become like centers of dynamic, intense energy that's happening. And those chakras can be in balance or they can be out of balance as well. When they're out of balance, there seems to be less activity. When they're in balance, there's more activity swirling around. So basically, those chakras and nadis are the pathways that link all the chakras. But again, we have all these numbers, so we can say there's over 70,000 chakras in the body, right? But there are also really main chakras that we focus on in different traditions. Some of the hierarchy and gatekeeping around access into nominally also provides quality control and accountability in traditional Vajrayana, and dismantling some of the traditional forms around access and transmission. Do you have thoughts about what can help with quality control and accountability? Yes, authentic teachers can actually do that. Actual trained teachers, not teachers who get recognized as tokus because they fit into some political economic system within the tradition, but people who are authentically, deeply trained, who are deeply immersed in bodhicitta, compassion, and love, who are not motivated by hierarchy, patriarchy, who do not hold these antiquated views around gender and hierarchy and class, but teachers who want to get people free. That's how you control. That's the thing. That's the gatekeeping. When authentic teachers, are recognized and supported in authentic teaching. That's it. That's really it. And um, we need more support and training in recognizing authentic teachers. Basically, some of us get really distracted, and get kind of lulled into like the bells and whistles, of teachers, but we actually don't know how to relate to the teacher through this deep sense of care that the teacher is radiating for us, and which they have for us, right? Yeah, that's it. Can you say more about the practice of being deities, both in formal practice on the cushion and formal practice? Um, oh, sorry, I lost that question. Can you say more about the practice of being deities, both in informal practice on the cushion or informal practice in daily life? How can one go deeper with it? What are some techniques, some entry points? So this reminds me of, particularly in the 90s, we had those, you had that saying, what would Jesus do? WWJD, what would Jesus do? We would wear our bracelets and shirts and everything. I think it was huge in the South. But that is actually, honestly, a way that we step into the practice is when I'm in the world, I ask myself, oh, what would Tara do in this situation? Would Tara actually cuss this person out, or would Tara actually express some level of deep empathy for what's happening around her, right? Like I think about my higher self rather than responding instantly through this identity of Rod, right? Until I've deeply integrated Rod and the deity, I'm always trying to refer to the deity. Like what would Tara do? What would Medicine Buddha do? What would the mother do here? And how can I step into that energy of the moment, step into the energy of the mother in this case, as I'm moving through a particular situation? How can I channel the mother? How can I channel Tara? How can I channel Medicine Buddha right now? Um, that would be something that to begin with. Um, I am Medicine Buddha. I am Tara. In this time of like disease and pandemic, how can I be Medicine Buddha? How can I sit within the energy of Medicine Buddha? How does my body become the expression of Medicine Buddha? How do I begin to see everything around me, everything that's happening as an expression of the deity? How can I see even the bullshit that happens as the deity communicating with me? You know, so the nature of the deity is the convergence of spaciousness, emptiness, and what we call luminosity, which is this potential for phenomenal reality to arise from as an energy, as a suchness. That's the deity, but that's also me. That's also the nature of my mind. So whenever anything arises, and I say, oh, that's just an expression of my mind, which is the same thing as saying it's the expression of the deity itself. So when phenomenal reality, which is the heart of Mahamudra, is saying that if phenomenal because phenomenal reality arises, it is at the same time pointing us back to the nature of our mind, because everything that arises is our mind. Everything that arises also, therefore, is the deity. All sound is the deity. All taste is the deity. All touch is the deity. All sensation is the deity. All thoughts are the deity. All emotions are the deity. When I'm pissed off, that's the expression of the deity. When I'm horny, that is the expression of the deity. When I'm hungry, that is the deity. That is my mind. All of it's just arising within the unlimited space of my mind, which is also the unlimited space of the deity. So it's all coming back to us. It's all circling and coming back to each other in this really intense way. And if we can just get with it, then we begin to experience these moments of liberation, these moments where I am intensely terrified of something. If I can just get with the thought, oh my God, this is just my mind, this is just the deity arising, then I liberate that fear. I liberate that fear in the moment. And that goes back to our bodies and identities and emptiness. It's all just the expression of our minds, right? But it's still happening. Like my body is an expression of my mind, but it is still a body arising within phenomenal reality. And both are true. My body is emptiness and my body is appearing. Both of those are true statements, and they have to be lived together in authentic practice. How do you feel? It's a statement from Mahakawa. Do you have suggestions for modifying the visualization? I feel very sick in body and heart. Well, just as I was saying before, it's like the sickness is the deity. Like my sickness, like when I'm sick, that is just the expression of the deity, reminding me that even the sickness is an expression of space and emptiness and luminosity, a potentiality or suchness, right? It's all arising, together. Sometimes I don't feel like I have the energy to summon, offer something to other beings. You can offer a thought, like you can offer the thought, may all beings be well, right? May all beings have what they need. May all beings be free from sickness. Like what else are you offering with that? Like what else do you want to give? That you've given a lot, and maybe you can't go out and actually do things, but you're giving this thought, and that's where the deity arises. That's where all this comes from, is that thought. May beings be free. The feeling when I settle in is akin to when I work with plant medicine, hospital-like feel. Also, I found this practice moved a lot for me. I feel somewhat depleted. You and me both. Is there a skillful way to approach this with rhythm, or should I continue with the poison? You should continue with resting. Like that's, you feel depleted because we've moved a great amount of energy around. And so therefore we must enter into restoration from the practice, right? So like I am just sitting here, my energy is completely depleted. My voice has gone down. Like I'm like super hungry. Like my movement is limited. That's not bad. This is what it means to work with a physical body. Like we are the subtle energy body just got a huge ass workout, right? We've just been conditioning, working out, taking the subtle energy body for a run. The physical body is supporting the subtle energy body right now. These bodies are always in contact, just like the chakras. All our chakras are talking to one another, right? And so all our bodies are also talking to one another. So like I can't I can't work one expression of my body without it impacting without impacting the expression of another body, you know. So you're physically tired, you know, because the subtle energy body um, has had a workout and it's moved, and the physical body is trying to support that, you know, the shift in the subtle energy body. So you work with this rhythm, you know, like you work with this. I do these practices constantly, right? I do pranayama, and I do these visualizations, and I'm leading these sessions almost every day in some form, some manner, right? And so that means that like I have to take the restoration after these practices really seriously. Because I'm exhausted doesn't mean I've done anything wrong. I actually have done quite a bit right, you know, to feel exhausted, you know, because that means I've been really working. And when we talk about Tantra, we're working on these really subtle, intense, you know, minute levels of energy, you know, and many of us aren't used to that. You know, even in yoga, like the way that Western mainstream yoga is taught outside of, you know, the spiritual aspects of yoga and unity movement, you know. Um, But this is a moment. So if you're tired, for anyone, if you're tired, if you're exhausted, just actually, this is the space for us to really rest our minds in. You know, this is a space where our thoughts really, they slow down, you know, and our awareness can open up within, you know, within this experience, right? As teachers, how can we become deeply, oops, yeah, Trinley, yeah, come onto the screen if you can. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna like just look at this question. As teachers, how can we become deeply trained without buying? It keeps disappearing. As teachers, how can we become deeply trained without buying into systems or hierarchy that have been created within the spiritual systems? And um, so I think for teachers, then what we're trying to do is understand that the system isn't the liberation. And then we need to actually develop a really, really strong relationship to what is actually liberatory, right? So the patriarchy isn't the liberatory quality. I would say of Vajrayana, for instance, right? That's not what's going to get me free. What's going to get me free is my compassion, my love, my recognition that my mind is the deity, you know, and all that, just everything that I've just been talking about, right? That's going to get me free. And to practice in a way that um, you're not buying into the systematic stuff, right? I'm like pretty much excluded from my lineage, right? And it's been Lama Justin who's held me close to the lineage, right? You know, I've years ago I said fuck it, fuck this, fuck the patriarchy, fuck the anti-blackness, fuck the anti-queerness. Like I was like, I just don't give a shit about this, and I've just done my practice, right? I just want to get free, and I'm willing, and I have given up a lot to experience freedom, to experience liberation, to do these liberatory teachings, you know, and I don't care about the hierarchy. I didn't get into this to do the hierarchy. And I think that we have to look at that also, is that some of us, like we come into spiritual, like some of us don't have shit, right? We don't have shit. Like we're not, you know, we're not considered attractive. We don't like have any special qualities. And then somehow we become like Dharma teachers, and all the fucking sudden, like we're like the hot shit, you know, in the corner, you know, and that's seductive for many of us. That's so seductive, you know, the kind of authority that you begin to wrestle with, once you're authorized as a teacher. And for me, again, it just comes, I just come back to the practice. I come back to my motivation. I come back to the practice. I am also held accountable by people, by practitioners who are able to say, Lamarad, what are you doing? Like they question me, they challenge me. And that's another way that we get seduced by the system, is like we surround ourselves with people who actually don't know how to question us, to hold us accountable, to mirror back some of the stuff that we're doing that may be really harmful. Okay, hey, Trinley. Can you speak?
But also, look, there are Black people on the screen. I'm glad to join you. I wanted to offer a comment on two of the questions that people brought up earlier, in particular around accountability with this new way of engaging with what was traditionally a formalized structure, and then also about how the Vajrayana or Tantric tradition manifests throughout the vehicles, throughout other traditions, throughout non-Buddhist traditions. And I just wanted to try to make some brief comments. In regard to accountability, this is something I definitely think about. And Lamarad hit it on the head with authentic presence of teachers. But going even further, I'd like to say, like, you have the three jewels in Mahayana and Theravada tradition, you have the three roots also in the Tantric tradition, and those are really parallel. Authentic presence and wisdom in teachers is Buddha. Hearing the power of and the presence of the teaching is the manifestations of the deity. And what's most important for me, which is really dear to my heart, is the presence of the protectors, and trusting that they will keep us and others on track, and they'll fuck things up when necessary. But on the side of protectors and Sangha, this is what I think we really, really lack in America. We're used to dealing with teachers and people who are on pedestals, and now we're in this conversation about how to deal with that differently. But we don't have a robed community that just lives amongst us who we can go to as exemplars. We don't have people who call people out when they're full of shit and are pretending to be spiritually woke. So as someone who is aspiring to walk that path, not in the role of a teacher, but just as some dude who sits on the street corner and it's like, oh, maybe I'll go ask him about some shit. But also because of my travels and of trying to find those people, because they weren't in my immediate community, to go to pujaris, to go to lamas, to go and find great practitioners who are my age or a little older, who I can look to, who inspire me and hold me accountable. So I think to get there, to have that, and to start seeing a vision of sincere and recognized just practitioners in our community, we have to begin by kind of accepting that people around us are wise and have wisdom, and we should look to each other. Perhaps we even have more wisdom than we know or profess. But we have to begin to look at each other as a community, as wise and as willing to hold each other accountable. Especially if we're really trying to be serious about this and want to get out of the place of like wooey new age stuff. We need those structures.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's we have to stop expecting realization to look a certain way. Like, realization has to start looking, I don't know, Black, or queer, or trans, or disabled, right? Where I was the same way, right? I came into Tibetan Buddhism, and I was like, the only wise people in the world are Tibetan monks, like my root teacher, Norla Rinpoche, right? Those are the only wise, enlightened people. I can't possibly see other people as being realized and enlightened, But when I kind of deepen my practice, I began to get really sensitive to the ways in which wisdom, compassion, love were being expressed around me. And I was like, oh, like this is everywhere. Like there are just people, like something that my teacher used to say all the time is like, you don't know who people are. You know, like you don't know if this is a realized awakened being sitting beside you on the subway. You know, they may just look like, I don't know, someone, you know, that you don't even resonate with, but like if we deepen our practice, we can sense wisdom, we can sense love, and it's so prevalent in the world, and that's what I'm trying to get people to understand, you know, with some of these practices.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to offer was in relation to the question about how the tantric tradition pops up elsewhere. And I thought it might be helpful to reflect upon the fact that when Shakyamuni came to his awakening, like all three vehicles were complete. But as a skillful guide, he's like, okay, I'm gonna give you a little bit of this. We'll go walk to that place on the mountain, and then we'll rest for a little bit, and then we'll walk to the next stage on the mountain. And some people actually couldn't do that, so he was like, okay, we'll come back. We'll like acclimatize. We'll like rest a little bit, and then we'll go back, and then we'll lead you to the third stage. Okay, actually, we got to go back down again. There's this whole process. But in some ways, I imagine that wisdom was always present from the beginning, that the tantric teachings were present in Buddha's mind at the inception, when he taught the Vinaya, when he taught the basic rules, when he opened people to universal compassion. Like the Vajrayana is the golden roof. It's the sky. It's always there. The sky is at low altitudes, it's at middle altitudes, and it's at high altitudes. So sure, Tantra, as it's been formed into distinct language and practices through various like cultures, might seem distinct or foreign through like, if we want to look at it that way. But I imagine similar, as we deepen our practice, we begin to say like, oh, wait a minute, that Tonglen thing, that sending and taking, that's actually really profound. That's actually some advanced shit. It's like we discover the little jewels that the Buddha placed along the way, and we realize that they've been there the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's also really important to point out that the Buddha was very much a reformist as well. So it wasn't as if he was like creating completely new things in the world. Like he came from Vedic culture, you know, and so much of this was already happening, but he gave it a different flavor. He gave it a different perspective, and he framed it in different ways, you know. And so like even Buddhism, you know, yeah, it seems so different, but also super similar at the same time to Vedic practice at the same time. But yeah, like as any reformer, you know, and it's like, you know, someone comes along, you know, and they have this new perspective, a new paradigm in relationship to an older tradition, you know, then we ask ourselves, okay, why did certain folks who came along, why did their practices blow up into Buddhism or into Christianity, you know, or like other traditions, you know, like why did, you know, and that was because it drew people in a certain way. You know, and there was also political factors as well that contributed, you know, and, you know, being a cult was also really important for early like Bhumisparsha, we're kind of a cult.
We're getting there.
We're not organized yet enough to be a cult. But yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah. And, you know, Rapa Trinley is going to be one of your instructors this month as well for Cha. So we're really excited. It's deeply realized, deeply practiced. That's the correct response, actually. And so, well, I mean, there's something about hierarchy and all that. Well, there are other sessions that we'll talk about that as well. But there is actually a question. What is your view on the necessity of having a living human guru? Okay, so I believe in in teachers, right? I believe in my personal practice, I believe in the guru tradition. If someone can search this I think this is on my website, but I was able to do a panel on this very question through Buddha Dharma about 2 summers ago. And that should be somewhere online. It was 4 of us who dialogued about this. And, I think it's imperative. I think the guru, the teacher is important. But I also know that we have much more work as a culture to do in order to mature into this culture that understands what a teacher or guru is. And we're not quite there yet. But I think individuals are there as well. So what do you suggest as a daily practice for someone who is just starting out in Tantra? My background is Zen, but I'm feeling very drawn to Tantric teachings. Would love to join you on the screen to ask this question. Yeah, Hope, you can join me on the screen. Thank you, please stay. You touched on it briefly, I think, but Hope, I'll just answer this question really quickly. I run into paths or institutions that keep Tantra a secret, as well as higher paths in Buddhism that refer to Tantra practice as dirty. It grapple with these things. How can you touch on this at all? Well, it's a secret because people don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And so you just say, oh, this is a secret. And then you don't have to explain it. And higher tantric is dirty. Well, it's complex and messy, if that's what we mean by dirty. So this isn't like this thing that's going to look really straightforward and really clean and really well put together. Tantra is going to take us into some really intense places, right? If we do it right, because that is related to the ways and the things that we have to do to get free from delusion. And this is the quick, we say Tantra and Vajrayana is the quick path, right? But there's a price to that quickness, that means that like you practice Tantra, you're going to be at odds with society. You're going to be living counterculturally. You go to India, like Lama Justin and I were just in India last month, right? We're going to eternal grounds. Like people are like living internal grounds around bodies, They're like eating from skull cups, right? They're just practicing these austerities, because they're so connected, often to Kali. Kali has this tradition of practice where people really take these austerities really seriously, particularly internal grounds and other like practices. But you get so devoted that you begin to kind of fashion a tunnel out of this reality of delusion, but it looks completely off. Looks completely intense. But anyway, we're gonna talk to Hope. Hey.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'm not sure what else I want to add except for what I said, except I haven't actually talked to you face to face, so I thought I would take that opportunity. Okay. So as I said, my background is in Zen Buddhism. I was a practitioner for quite a long time and left like 7 years ago because I realized that I was really using my practice to not deal with some emotional issues. I was bypassing.
Yeah.
So I walked away and kind of didn't entirely leave my meditation practice. I kind of still practiced sort of a form of zazen every day to a certain extent. And then I did some other things and did a whole bunch of other work. And so I ended up stumbling across you because I like how you talk about anger. I'm a person with a lot of anger. And I don't know, this whole practice just seems so confusing to me. So my question is really like, how would one start a daily practice?
Yeah.
And I have some fear around leaving behind what I know, to be honest with you, which wasn't working for me.
Yeah. Well, it's not, I don't know if it's always about leaving behind everything, but I think for me, like it's really about starting with the pieces that resonate most with me. And it's not about understanding it either. Like I started tantric practice, Vajrayana practice. I was like, I have no idea what this is, but it felt a certain way. So I just did it, and just by doing it, like I just really started to understand what was really happening in my practice, and then I started understanding how to make choices about what to incorporate into my practice. Of course, that was like based upon having the guidance of a teacher and community, but you start with what resonates,
Right.
and you don't, these, the practices that we get exposed to, that we find an affinity to, they're not going to be these really intense, dangerous practices, because those practices really aren't accessible. Like we may think they're not that accessible,
Right.
in the world. And so I would just start with that, like the medicine Buddha practice is something that you can start with. I had to start chanting like Chenrezig practice. Like I didn't know anything about visualization or deities, but I just started doing it.
Because it resonated with you.
Yeah, it just felt a certain way. It just felt completely different than anything I had ever experienced. And
Right.
I said, okay. And then that opened the door to like learning more about the practice and getting deeper into other things as well. Use this, this month is really about that.
Yeah. I was thinking, I mean, it's so nice because, I'm quarantined. And then I was like, oh, here's some, and I have nothing really to do. So, but I like what you said about not, because there are pieces of that practice that I miss, but there's pieces that didn't speak to me or didn't quite work for the way I'm put together with my particular karma and my life, Unfortunately, I wanted it to, but it didn't.
And that's something that we all like. This is a really important piece that you point out, Hope, is that like if it doesn't work, do something else.
Right.
And that's the easiest way to lose like interest and motivation in a practice, is to like just keep doing something that you feel no connection to.
Right.
You don't feel the impact of any longer. And you're just gonna develop this aversion to practice in general. Right. So like all this medicine Buddha practice has actually, the one that we did tonight, it just came out of the ways in which I've been asking myself, what is engaging and dynamic for me? Of all the things that I've been practicing for almost 20 years, what are the pieces that like really get me? And I just put them together and practice this.
Right.
And we can do the same for ourselves. This is what we're trying to encourage in Bhumisparsha. This is the experiment.
Yeah.
It's like, can we actually practice agency to create our paths? And they may or may not look like people around us, right? But they are conducive to what we need.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that is the last. Well, I'll do one more question because we have. We have one more question. I'll just. If you look at the chat box, thank you. Who's Mahakala? Do I know you, Mahakala? Mahakala has posted the article to the Guru model. I think that's really good to take a look at. Let's see. Yeah, going back to this question about the secrecy and the dirtiness, like you have to understand there's traditions and lineages within Buddhism talk so much shit about each other. Like you have no idea. It's like there's so much discrimination, so much prejudice, within these traditions. Coming up in Vajrayana Tibetan Buddhism, my teacher was like, oh yeah, you're not going to get enlightened with Zen. These are actual statements. He would be like, oh yeah, Zen isn't going to get you enlightened, And then friends would come to me in other traditions and be like, we don't know what the hell you all were doing in the Vajrayana. Like, that's not even Buddhism. Those are the attitudes that we're struggling with, and the future of Western Dharma, especially here in the United States, is going to be a future of Buddhism where all the lineages are going to start mixing together and creating new lineages. I mean, basically, this is how it works. This this is Bhumisparsha is working like that. This is an example. It's already working. Insight tradition, as a Theravada tradition, doesn't like do bodhicitta. Like Theravada doesn't do bodhicitta, but here in the States it does. It does loving kindness and metta practice, Could you please talk about Nundro? Yeah, Nundro, for those of you who are unfamiliar, Nundro is, we call them the preliminary practices to enter formally into the path of Vajrayana practice, right? There are 4 parts to the Nundro. The first part are contemplations. We call that the outer Nundro. The inner Nundro are these 4 sets of practices of prostrations, accumulating mantras, and so forth. I don't find Nundro to be imperative to enter into Vajrayana. I think that the practices in Nundro are really important or really powerful. But if we choose to do those practices, we have to see them as practices that can, within themselves, get us really far down the path towards enlightenment and realization. We have to stop looking at Nundro as something that I have to do to get somewhere else. And that's the only problem with Nundro as it's framed. We, and Bhumisparsha, we're not going to really focus on Nundro as something that you have to complete in order to get something else. We don't even know that we're going to even address Nundro yet. So this is part of what we're trying to figure out. Okay. All right. That's it. I am tired. And it's 9 o'clock. So part of me says we were only going to 8:30. So, which is already stepping over boundaries. Thank you so much, everyone who, you all have come. Of course, this has been recorded. We're going to post this video in the future at some point. So don't feel as if you've missed something, and you'll have access to it. Tomorrow, please join us at 7, Eastern time for I call it our Passover panel, which Lee and myself will co-facilitate, and that panel we're bringing in members of the community and invited guests to talk about their spiritual paths. They're going to talk about their roots practices, which are not necessarily Dharma, and how Dharma has become a part of their root practices. So, and this is in the spirit of Passover as well this week. And then join us on Saturday for our Easter programs, and where at 6 o'clock on Sunday, I'll be introducing a brand new text called Matara, or the Heart of Matara, that's been deeply influenced by Lama Justin and I, our pilgrimage last month, the pilgrimage that we did, and practicing and worshiping at mother shrines. I would say mother shrines, feminine divine, feminine deity shrines. Okay. So I'm dedicate just the rest of this time. So on behalf of all of us who have gathered tonight for this dialogue, may all of this merit, this karma, good karma, I pray that it's dedicated out to all beings, that all beings may have what they need in order to experience liberation from suffering and to experience liberation from all the causes and conditions of sickness, ailments, all the causes and conditions of social inequality and inequities. Okay, may we all get free as quickly as possible. All right. Awesome.